guys, and welcome to the newest episode of Be Hero Presents the Bump Guard Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Brian, and as always, with me is my tag partner, Psycho. How are we doing tonight, Psycho?
I'm doing pretty good. You changed it up a little bit there. Interesting. I'm as always your co-host, so I like it.
Well, seemingly, I don't think we've ever done an episode without you as my co-host. So
No, we have not, and that would be weird. I think it's far more likely that I do an episode without you, I guess, because of certain guests.
yeah, there are certain ones that I will not join you for. So, but with that all being said, sorry that we haven't been able to do a couple episodes the last couple of weeks. We have been very busy over the last few weeks. In fact, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the stuff we've been doing. And as you guys can hear, my voice is barely coming back to me. It was pretty much gone for 2 days because we were, like I said, super busy this last couple of weeks with a lot of stuff. Over the last 2 weeks, I think I ended up having, I think I estimated earlier, it's like 16 matches.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah.
I don't envy you actually a little bit because I'm sure it was fun and all that, but I'm sure you're beat up and tired.
Very much so. And in fact, I only won one match through that whole time. And in that one win, did I win in the show? Might be two. But in the one I won over last weekend, the only reason I won is because it was by disqualification. So I ended up getting hit with a chair anyways. So really wasn't much of a win. But that being said, guys, let's go ahead and talk about what we've done over the last couple of weeks. So to start with, DCW Controlled, which was a huge hit. Thank you guys for everyone that showed up to that show. It was a great time at Trolley Square. We had the opportunity to having Chris Adonis, formerly Chris Masters, there, as well as Kenny King. I got to sit down and talk with Kenny King a lot. He's a very good guy. You've met him, talked with him before. I've met him in the past. I actually had probably the longest opportunity of ever BSing with him was at this show. It was just a good show all around. Great fans as always. And then we followed up that with the following Monday.
Wait, hold on. Wait, back up. I want to talk about your show a little bit, Control.
Oh, yeah.
You're breezing over it too quickly. So obviously, you mentioned that you had talked with Kenny King, and you mentioned that I had talked with him and been on shows with him before too. And I've actually been in the ring with him and wrestled him.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you bring me up?
No. Why
would I? So what did you guys talk about?
We talked about a variety of different things. Also, Frankie, who's a promoter in Florida, was also there, who I also had a chance to talk with a lot. But with Kenny, we talked about a couple different things. One of the last times he was out here, my 10-year-old daughter was just born. She was only about 3 weeks old, and we were working a show together for War. And I mentioned to him, and I told him too, is like, this is gonna sound marky as all hell, but like, you were the first wrestler outside of me to hold my kid. And Manny was also there, and he was giving me crap. But Kenny went on the whole thing. He's like, I remember growing up talking like in the business, and people are always like, don't be a mark, don't take the shot, don't take photos with these guys, don't show that you like these guys, stuff like that. Treat them with the utmost respect, and if they want to take a photo with you, it's okay, but don't reach out to them, stuff like that. And he goes, but man, I'll tell you what, like, thinking back on it and things like that, there's so many more photos I wish I would have had with Jay Briscoe or this guy or that guy that I'll never be able to have, and stuff like that. And it kind of hit me there because when you were training me back in the day, that was one of the things, is don't mark out to these guys, things like that. But he's like, it was some guy who just felt like it needed to be a rule that you can't mark out the people, but really there's no reason. Like, some guys will just not take it. And, on those guys, just be respectful and be, all right, thank you for your time, and walk away. But most of the guys will be like, sure, oh, by all means, come over. We'll take a picture, BS and little stuff. We talked about that. And then,
And I think, real quick, I think that's also, it's times have changed, right? It's a different era from when I started, and kind of what I passed down and everything. Is that I was kind of brought up that it's like, hey, don't, you're not a fan now, right? Don't mark out, over the name guys that you're working with and whatnot. So, and I kind of regret it too, because, I never got a picture with John Cena when he wrestled main event in my first show, and I trained with him. Never went up to him. I saw other guys, going up and taking pictures with them, and they have pictures with these guys. But I have very few pictures with a lot of the guys. Like I have a picture with Jimmy Snuka, and I have a picture with gosh, very very few guys, actually, now that I think about it. And I kind of wish that I would have gotten pictures more with them, but
I actually don't have any with anybody, any names of any variety, outside of like Nav and Michelle, of course.
sure,
But
sure,
it's a little bit different because like we all became friends, right?
right,
And but going back with Kenny, like talking with him, we also talked about a trainee who I had taken on the Red Wing, and he had stepped away for his own personal reasons, but decided to come back at that show and was wanting to get back in the ring and everything else. So I had talked with them, and then he talked to Kenny, and then Kenny and I were talking about him. And man, Kenny is such a great guy. Like Kenny gave both me and him his own personal information to contact him with. So I've talked with Kenny a few different times about other stuff. And Kenny has reached out to this kid, not the kid reaching out to him. He reached out to the kid to check on him. Was like, hey, have you started going to training? Stuff like that. And I know he has because he told me he had, and things like that. So, like, out of some of the people I've met, man, like, Kenny King is straight up one of the nicest guys in the business. Very humble. And
yeah,
he's just a good dude.
yeah. He was really nice. Gosh, it would have been the last time. Let's see, when I met Kenny, it was like right after he was like right out of Tough Enough, off of that show, and we hit it off pretty good right away. He was like really down to earth then, and he's only had more success since then,
Mm-hmm.
with Ring of Honor and everything that he's done. I kind of, it's one of my fondest memories though, like wrestling him. We wrestled for Power Omega Wrestling, and we were in a battle royal together, and we were the last two guys, and he ended up putting me over by I eliminated him with he had me up in a power bomb, and I Hurricane Rana'd him over the top rope. And it was a pretty cool memory that I have of being in there with Kenny King. And Kenny was so gracious. Every time I've seen him, he probably wouldn't recognize me now, because like I don't have the green hair anymore, so I'd probably not even be recognizable. But yeah, it was always good times being around Kenny.
He's a good dude, man. And Chris was really nice too. We've met Chris a couple of times, and I was happy to see that he remembered who I was from last time he was here, because he'd spent a 6-month stint with us at War, where he was our champion. Spoiler a little bit. Chris Adonis is currently the Devotion heavyweight champion. So
You know what I find interesting about that is that he had won the War heavyweight title, and now he's won, the Devotion championship heavyweight title. That's pretty amazing when you think about it, that a name like that, that's wrestled for WWE and NWA and all of that, and he's won 2 Utah championships.
Right.
It's like I would love to hear how that all came together. Because that just to me is like that's a trivia question right there. The answer to a trivia question.
Yeah, some bar trivia question. Uh,
Yeah.
One of the interesting things though was Brett Boucher, who was a former champion, had posted a picture of himself when he was like 16, uh, meeting Chris for the first time, and then him working against Chris. Right?
Mhm.
I laughed and I talked to Brett about this after. The picture he has is from FanX, the second FanX. I think it might have been actually the second Comic Con because it used to be Salt Lake Comic Con and then FanX they
Mhm.
would do later.
Sure.
That War was actually at doing the shows, and War actually brought Chris in, and that was the show that the following. Because that was on a Saturday. The following Sunday is the show that Chris won the title at. So it all comes full circle, man.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
but yeah, it was a really good show. Again, crowd was amazing. Crowd's always amazing, and I'll talk more about the crowd here in a little bit when we get to later on that week.
Okay.
Monday we did Raw here in SmackDown or here in Salt Lake. Raw was here, which we had several of our guys backstage at Raw, and then a lot of our guys were out and around building, handing out flyers, selling tickets and things like that. It was a good time out there too. I got to see some old faces I hadn't seen in a while. Uh, so yeah, all in all,
Who did you see?
I
Can you name drop?
nobody like the nobody big.
Nobody that. Okay, no wrestlers.
No, well, no, there was a few wrestlers, just nobody big. So,
So okay, I won't make a joke on here then. I won't speculate who.
but yeah, so we did Raw. Several of the guys went to watch it. I didn't. I was actually not feeling that great that day, so I didn't even get to watch the show per se. I did watch bits of it back, specifically where some of our guys were involved as security and things like that. So,
Yeah, I know, like I was there live at the show, watching up above. Um and I saw Manny and Brett
yeah,
as security there, breaking up Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins and that whole thing. I
Manny,
immediately spotted him.
Manny was on there twice.
What's that?
Manny was in there twice.
Oh yeah.
He was helping Ricochet to the back or in the back after he got jumped.
Right.
So,
Yes. So yep, so that happened. Um yeah, who else was backstage? Do you know?
I believe Solo was backstage, and one other one. I can't remember who it was, but it wasn't Bud. Uh,
It's like one other one. That one other one is going to be listening. It's like, dude,
yeah, I know.
you forgot me.
Uh,
Some other guy.
I'm very tired. Remember, I said something. What did I say earlier? Like
We're,
15,
you're
16
going to get
matches,
hit up by one of those wrestlers that you met outside the building too. That you're like, no one big. Someone's going to take offense to that.
probably.
Um,
Well, reach out to me on my social medias, Mike Burke,
yep.
DCW, on Facebook,
Send all
Instagram,
your
and
hate
Twitter.
mail.
I did that.
Yes, it's not me this time. Um,
Man.
yeah, I thought it. What you saw? You said you watched some of the show from home. What did you think of the show?
The show was fine. Raw and SmackDown actually have been hitting it really well lately. Even and NXT as well. Like they're all just like hitting on all cylinders lately.
Because I thought it was actually a really strong show. Actually, it was. I haven't watched Raw in like, gosh, I can't even remember the last Raw I watched from beginning to end.
Mhm.
Like it's probably been years to be honest. Like I think, gosh, the last Raw I actually remember because it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's a lot to sit through. I think the last Raw I remember watching might have been the last time that Raw was here in Salt Lake before the pandemic. I don't remember, maybe, or like right before the pandemic. Uh, but I thought it was a strong show. I actually thought the story that they were telling with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Jey Uso
Mhm.
and and Cody Rhodes. I thought all of that was really, really well done. throughout the show, and I thought the matches were actually pretty good. So it flew by. It did not feel like 3 hours to me. So that's a good sign. And I got to tell you, I could not believe how over Jey Uso is with that crowd. Like the whole Bloodline storyline has made Jey Uso.
Yes. Yeah, totally has. And not just Jay. Like, you look at some of the people, like Raw and SmackDown both, and again NXT, like they're hitting on all cylinders. I know you don't watch the weeklies, but like they have been making great stories over the last probably about a year now of stuff. And then like this one, like when you asked me if I watched it, I'm like, yeah, I watched a little bit of it, and it was good. It was good relative to the ones that have been going on because they've all been on fire so much lately. It's hard to say that one was better than the other. SmackDown, the SmackDown beforehand when The Rock came back, that was huge for what was going on. But again, like the storylines right now at the WWE are just nailing it, man. They have exactly been hitting what they need to, and the stuff they're doing with like Chad Gable and Gunther, the stuff they've been doing with what's his name? Drew McIntyre, all of that stuff. It's just been on fire, man.
Yeah, I think that was kind of my knock the last time WWE was here. They did SmackDown here, and I went to that as well. And I liked it before, but like they still had the Bloodline storyline going and stuff, and it was Sami Zayn in the group, and I liked it, but it seemed like nothing progressed, like it was a throwaway show type thing. And this one actually felt like, okay, this was a something that moved the story forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really like, is when something actually happens, here, that is so much more interesting to watch than just some random matches and nothing happening, and it's like, okay, we're not gonna remember this.
Yeah.
But I think I will remember the story that's going on right now with that. So yeah, the Bloodline story has actually made a lot of guys. If you think about, it got Sami Zayn more over. Even Kevin Owens is red hot right now. Jey Uso Solo is getting made into a star. It's helping Cody Rhodes. It's helping. I mean, you got all of these guys that's benefiting from just being around that story, and it's kind of beautiful to watch. That it's giving the rub to so many, and it's not like when you had the NWO in WCW. I just want to mention it because it's kind of similar, like with the Bloodline, the NWO feel to it. However, after a while, like nobody else was getting the rub. It was all about the NWO putting themselves over, over and over and over again. Really, the only two guys that really benefited from the NWO storyline that weren't in the group, I guess, were like Sting and DDP. Yeah, those are the ones that really got made. Yeah. And Sting was already over, it just kind of gave him that top guy billing, I guess, Yeah. But yeah, I'm loving the Bloodline storyline, and it could keep going, if it keeps doing what it's doing. So I'm loving it.
Yep. And then following that, at least for me, my work, because I also do computer programming as my day-to-day job. We had a big old conference, so I had to do conference stuff for Tuesday and then Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday we were at Salt Lake's FanX, and we were wrestling multiple times during that show. I also did a lot of ring announcing and talking with people. We did some tryouts, so we had some people get in the ring to see what they felt like about getting into business.
That was one thing that I noticed every time I stopped over, because I was at FanX too. Just I wasn't over there all the time, and I wasn't doing the wrestling. But every time I stopped over there, something was going on in the ring, a tryout or part of a show or whatnot. I wish I would have been able to stop over more often, but for most of the time, my son was kind of dictating our schedule, and so I stayed for as long as he would
Allow.
be okay. Yeah, exactly. Really, let's be honest. As long as he would allow it, right? And so it's like, oh, we're here for 10 minutes. Time to go again.
Yeah, we had. I want to say we had somewhere in the range of around 50 to 60 tryouts over the 3 days. So we had
That's
50 to 60
impressive.
people get in the ring to try out wrestling to see what it was like. Today was the first day of training since then. And I know personally, I've had a couple different people reach out to me about the training stuff. I know at least two of them made it there, plus three more who reached out to me. So I'm not sure how many made it
Awesome.
to the training today. I'm hoping we get a good batch of people that come and stay. It was a great time. Lots of shows. Crowd reaction was phenomenal. And FanX is not directly like our crowd. Like, I mean, it's not our crowd. It's not really
Mhm.
our demographic per se. I mean,
I
there's a
wouldn't
lot of
say that, but it's casuals, right? For the most
yeah,
part.
yeah.
Or
I
you
mean,
find or you find the closet wrestling fans, right? That they love wrestling secretly, but
I
they
couldn't tell you how many times I was talking to somebody out there, and I'm like, "Hey, you guys a big fan of wrestling?" He goes, "Oh, I used to be when I was a kid, or something like that." I'm like, "Well, now is the time, man, to get back into it with AEW, with WWE, how hot they are. Plus, you have local wrestling like what we have, and things like that. And we talk wrestling stuff, and we still left it for the next show, which is going to be huge. So it was a great time meeting the fans. We probably had FanX in general by Saturday had over 140,000 people at it, and we had people coming in and out of that 140,000 through where we were at the whole time. We were constantly doing something. We had the cast of Netflix's Tiger King join us in the ring for a little bit to do some stuff. Like, it was an amazing time at FanX this year. I was super happy we got to do it, and I'm excited to do it again next year. I say that knowing that I'm done. I'm tired. My voice is all but gone, but I'm excited to do it again. It was so much fun. And more importantly, man, with how the crowd reacted to a lot of our guys and how our guys worked the crowd on a crowd that is not our normal fan and still got them to cheer or boo them and got so much great reaction. I was so proud of our guys because most of the guys we have, most of the guys that were there, guys and gals that were there, have been in the business less than 2 years. And being able to put a card together in like 5 minutes before we're supposed to go out there, have those guys pretty much throw a match together with calling most of it on the fly, still getting the crowd reaction, really not having any botches or anything like that. Nobody got hurt, happily, outside of me tweaking my shoulder. Uh, and just having such a great time, man. I could not be prouder than I was for those guys, man. Uh, it was such a great time, and like there were times too where we were super shorthanded. Friday night, it got down to like two shows left for us to do by the night was over, and there was five workers.
that that I mean that completely explains why I kept getting asked by everybody, when are you coming back? And then Sowell was Sowell would see me, it's like, you ready to get in there? We need you. And so
Yeah, it was it got pretty hard to deal with on some of it, but it's because a lot of our guys are also doing other opportunities, right?
Mhm,
Um, that Friday, Manny was SmackDown, right? We
mhm.
had three of our guys and a ref. They were going to work a lucha show they were getting paid for. And then two of those guys right after that were going down to IZW to go work with Nav in Phoenix. And
Yeah.
so, I'm not going to get too upset with these guys taking these paid opportunities and going to further their career.
Mhm.
It just made us really hard for us. But man, did these guys and gals step up, man. Like, I could not be more proud of
That's
the
awesome.
crew we have there and everything. It was so good. So good, man. And again, the crowd reaction we had there, like I think in a few of the matches, we probably had over 1,000 people watching us and just listening to the crowds boo you or cheer you or what have you. Um, It was fantastic, man. It was such a good time. I say that now knowing I actually finally was able to sleep.
Sure.
During
You
the
know,
time, I'm like, I want this to be over.
I honestly don't know which was more tiring for me. You know, when I do the Fandex, and that used to exhaust me,
Mm,
right? And then having to load the ring and unload it, right after, and everything like that. But uh, but walking around for 3 days, like nonstop, like wore me out too, especially with my 4-year-old. Going around
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like when I went on Friday by myself, um, I was not as worn out on that day when it was just me. Now, granted, I sat for 3 panels, which were pretty good. I got to see the cast from Scream. That was a really good time. When you're working Fanex, with the wrestling, you never get a chance to really experience Fanex.
True.
You don't get to go to any panels because you don't have the time. You might have 15 minutes here or there, to go use the restroom, get something to eat real quick, and then you're back there working, whether it's wrestling or promoting. You can't take that much time off to go enjoy something. And so it was kind of nice from that standpoint to kind of go around and see some of the things and experience it. The second day, I had my son, and that day, the first half of the day, I was loving it. We were going around taking pictures. My son was like, "Oh, get a picture with that, with that costume, or get a picture with this costume." And I was like, "He's loving this." And then by midday, it started to wear on me because all he wanted to do was the pirate ship at Fanex. He wanted to do that over and over. We went to KidCon over there, okay, and it was like parent hell for me. Like it was like he just wanted to like run around. He wouldn't listen to everything. It was the worst.
Yeah.
I told my girlfriend, I said, on because she came on day 3, and I was like, do not go to KidCon. I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. But the day before, we had, and if my son ever listens to this when he gets older, he'll be mortified probably of the story I'm going to tell. But you'll get a kick out of this. Our viewers will get a kick out of this. So I'm telling it.
Listeners, not viewers. This is audio
Yes.
podcast.
Yes, listeners. Our listening listeners. Okay. So that was for you, Brian. So
I hate
we're
you
on
so much.
we go to the pirate ship, okay? And he's having fun and everything, and I'm waiting for him to come off of the pirate ship. And he so the guy that's operating it, every so often he'd go on and say abandon ship, because to let some new kids on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he does it, and all the kids come out except for my son. And I'm like, what's going on? And then, the guy's in there for a while, and I'm like, this can't be good. He's in there a while. My son's not coming out. Maybe it's not wanting to come off or whatever. So the guy comes back and he's like, you better come in here and get him. And so I go in there. I'm like, okay. I go in here and get him. My son emerges and he says, I had an accident. And he holds up his hand, and there is crap all over his hand. And it is, sorry for anyone that's eating while listening to this, but it is green, like psycho green. Okay. And it is all over his hand. And I'm like, the guy that's operating the ride, he just looks at it and he's like you could just see like his stomach dropping, like, I better go in there and see if there's so I can clean it up, find this stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I take him and I'm like, we better head to the bathroom now. Thankfully, I had to change of clothes, everything, right? And we're going. And my son, like, I'm telling him, keep your hand down, don't touch anything, everything. He's like putting it up in the air and waving it like he doesn't care. Like he's putting it in the hand, and I'm like, put it down, because I'm embarrassed. I don't want him to like show everybody that he just crapped and have a full on panic, right? And so we're going to the bathroom, and we're trying to, for some reason, it was our, I wasn't as acquainted with where the nearest bathroom was, so I'm like trying to find it, and we went the wrong way and have to go back, and he's
I was
waving
gonna
it
say
in
there
the
was a
air.
bathroom right next to where KidCon
I
is.
know, Yeah, well, the pirate ship is not next to KidCon. The
Oh.
pirate ship is all the way on the other end. Okay, so but we go to the bathroom, and while we're going there, his pants fall down because there's so much crap in his pants, and I'm like pulling him up. We get into a stall, okay, so I can clean him up. Now, okay, when we go in there, those stalls are not made for like there. It was like being in an in an airplane bathroom. Okay, that's how tight they were, and I'm in there nowhere to move. Right, I've put on some weight, so I there's no room for me. He's there. I'm sitting. I'm like cleaning off his hand and everything, wiping it. And okay, so listen to this. Okay, so I'm wiping it with toilet paper, and it's it's like so thick on. I can't get it with the toilet paper. It's on. I'm like, thankfully I have wet wipes, but I can't flush those. Right, and so I get like the toilet paper covers, or the toilet covers, and I'm like wiping it with the wet wipe, and I'm sticking like it in, wrapping it up in the toilet seat covers, and I said, and I'm like, okay, I'll just throw these away when I'm done, and I put them on the back of the toilet seat. I My girlfriend laughed at me when I got home because I used it was a brand new package of wipes, and I used like half of it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I'm like, because it's everywhere.
Oh,
I
I
pull
believe you. I've done the same in the past.
I pulled down his pants. His legs were coated with this green stuff, and it looked like I called him Lizard Man because he looked like a lizard, like green lizard. Okay. Eh, um, and so so I'm cleaning this up, and there's nowhere to go. I'm like, to like really do a good job here, I'm having to kneel on the ground on the bathroom, and I'm like, this is my back's hurting because I have no space. He's doing this, and he keeps wanting to like touch my face with his hand, and I'm like, no, and I'm freaking out. Like, I can only imagine the people in the stalls next to us just laughing at hearing this go on. Right? I'm freaking out because I'm a germaphobe, and he's like wanting to touch my face. He's like, I want to love your face. I'm like, no, don't touch me. Okay. And so I'm cleaning this all up. And by now, the back of the toilet with the wipes in the toilet seat covers, it's like 3 feet tall. and, and so we get it all cleaned up, right? And I get him, I like, so I'm getting him clean clothes, okay? After I put his clothes, and I was like, okay, we'll wrap that in the toilet seat cover and put it in his bag. Tried to stuff it in. I'm like, we're gonna have to clean that bag later. We got a pouch for it. We'll figure this out. And there's only, apparently we had only packed one extra sock for him, so he's only got one extra sock. So his other foot is bare on the ground, and so we're cleaning up. And I put his shoes on, and there's crap on the floor, like new crap, like I cleaned up and everything, and it's there. It's like, where did that come from? It's on the bottom of his shoes. And it's on the bottom of his shoes. I'm like, no. So I'm like trying to clean that off and everything. And I was like, we can't track this through the place. Like, I'm trying to do a good job, but it's in like the crevices of his bottom of his shoes. And so I'm cleaning that up as best I can. I'm like, okay, we're going to we have to leave now. So any other plans? We have to go home. We took tracks up, so we have to go. So there's not a good way to do that. So it's like, we'll go to tracks. We'll, you'll just wear the one sock, put the shoes on. We'll go to track. We'll get home, and before we get in the car, I'm going to have you take those shoes off so that you don't track it in the car, right? And we'll get home. We'll figure it out. Well, so as we're about to leave the stall and everything, I look back at this 3 foot tall, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to like pick this up in my arms and carry this to the bathroom and have him so he doesn't run off, and my everything. So I feel really bad for whoever went in there next. And I feel really bad for who had to clean that up. There was still crap on the floor, and there's 3 feet tall of toilet seat covers wrapped in the, with the wipes in there of crap in there. We hightailed it out of there. We washed our hands. And I had to soak his shoes in the sink to try to like get it off and everything. I carried him for as long as I could carry him out of there so fast. And then I was like, I can't carry you, so you're going to have to put these shoes on. We'll have to get home. Yeah, and that was the plan. Oh my gosh, I was traumatized. And my girlfriend was laughing so hard when I told her this. And hearing this story,
It's because it didn't happen to her.
Exactly. You know what? That was worth listening to this whole episode just for that story, guys.
In the future, something that we ended up having to start doing with the girls, because we had a similar incident in the going out to a place like that. We take like Smith's bags, like grocery bags.
Yep.
And then put them in the bags with us when we have a change of clothes, just so we had a place to put like the other clothes and stuff like that.
You know, hindsight being 2020, it's like I should have done that. I thought I was prepared until I wasn't. Okay. So
there are some things that you can just never prepare yourself for. Your son crapping himself inside of a giant pirate ship is definitely not one that would have been on the list.
And then the next day we had to go back, and he wanted to go back to the pirate ship, and I'm like, they probably have your picture up saying he's not allowed in here. I'm like, I'd be embarrassed to show my face. So when we went back to the pirate ship, because he wanted to go back on it, and I was like, I noticed it's the same guy working. I'm like, if he sees us together, he's going to put 2 and 2 together. He's going to remember, right? So I had my girlfriend take him. I was like, there's so many kids, he might forget the kid's face, or maybe with somebody else, like a mother, it won't put 2 and 2 together. But if he sees us together, so I stayed away and I let her to go take him, because I was like, I was mortified. I do not want them to look up and see us again and be like, nope.
How do you follow that? There are no words, bro. No words.
We're shutting it down. No.
No words. So, with all that being said, what an interesting weekend it was. It was a great time, though. But something else did happen during this week as well that we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
And it's one of the sadder things that could happen, and that was in the WWE having a large amount of talent releases. And some of them were quite surprising. So we're going to kind of go through those real quick to end tonight's thing. But again, before we go on, I want to thank everybody that came up to us. I want to thank all the fans who came up to us, came up to me specifically at the con, mentioning that they listened to Be Hero in general, whether it's Bump Card or Slightly Agitated or what have you. And then to all the new listeners we got from there, I hope you guys are listening. And if this is the first episode, I'm sorry. We don't always talk about crap, but it happens.
Crap happens.
Yeah, exactly. So, but thank you guys all for coming to see us and saying hi. So, all right. So let's go ahead and
the list pulled up.
As do I. So, let's save the big one.
So, the one that I have pulled up first, Mustafa Ali.
Yeah, he asked for his release, I think it was like last year or the year before. So, I'm not terribly surprised with it. I am a little bit, though, because he started having a nice run going on in NXT recently. So I am a little surprised that they were getting rid of him at this point. Now,
because he was supposed to face for a championship on NXT against Dominic, right?
No. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. But before we go on too far on this, I want to remind everyone, this is a result of the Endeavor stuff that just recently happened with the merger between UFC and WWE, and their new company. I'm pretty sure it's called Endeavor.
Well, Endeavor bought it, but they formed a new company called TKO.
That's right. So, and this is all as a result of this, which is ironic because they go off and release a large amount of talent, but they pick up Jade Cargill, who started her first day at the PC today. and they made a big old thing about it. So
I think part of it is just, reward versus investment at this point. Because and you mentioned Mustafa, we're just talking about Mustafa Ali and how it's not that surprising. I honestly think Mustafa Ali is a talented wrestler, a talented guy, but I think he had peaked with what they were going to do with him. I honestly, when they had him leading that stable, that he was a part of,
Retribution.
I honestly think I was surprised that he was getting that kind of a push, because I just thought he was smaller. He not the guys that would typically get pushed in WWE.
Well, he had a bit of an interesting demographic that would follow him, right? Like he was always kind of like mid on sales. He was always a little higher than mid on like the way people reacted with him and things like that. And he was always just a great worker and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a guy that kind of could play in a different bunch of sandboxes. When he moved down to NXT, he was getting a lot more looks on him. He was getting a lot more storyline stuff because people had more recognition from being in the main roster for a long time.
Where do you see him like going, or do you think he's done wrestling?
I don't know if he's done wrestling. I can see him going somewhere. He's extremely talented, not just in the ring, but in his promo and character work. They can give him almost anything, or they gave him like tons of different varieties of things, and he worked with it and made it watchable, something that you wanted to see, right? And with that kind of personality, I could see him. I see him more likely going to like Impact or ROH.
That's what I was going to say.
Than AEW, because I just don't think he fits that kind of system per se. But I think Impact's actually a really good spot for him.
Yeah, I would say Impact if I had to guess if he ends up somewhere. The next guy, Rick Boogs.
Boogs.
I know you liked this guy. I honestly didn't see a lot in him. I thought he was kind of a one-trick pony, to be honest. But
he entertained me a lot with a lot of stuff he was doing, especially when he was with Nakamura.
Yeah, that was kind of his highlight, right?
Yeah,
with Pat McAfee really jamming out to them playing together.
Well, he 2 WrestleManias ago, he was in a tag match at WrestleMania with him and Nakamura against the Brawling Brutes. And when he got injured and he was out for almost a year, which was at his high point, and he was really over then too. But he never was able to get back on there. Now, he has come out to say he thinks the reason he was let go was more to backstage politics, because he felt like when Triple H was in charge that he didn't get the push he was getting when McMahon was in charge. And it might be true, because McMahon's such a big guy fan that that would make a little sense, or a bit more sense. But Triple H kind of gives everybody the opportunity to get themselves over, essentially, to prove themselves. And if Triple H didn't think that you were doing well enough based off what he saw, there might be something to it. That being said, I can see him having a decent enough run in AEW, but again, I see more Impact for him.
Yeah, I would see, like, honestly, I see him either going to Impact, or I just see him kind of working indies. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the ceiling is for him. He might have peaked already with what he kind of did. I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. I always wish the best for guys. I hate to see people's careers come to an end or anything like that. If he wants to keep working and he wants to keep, if he's serious about improving, then he'll end up somewhere. Yep. And if not, then he'll do something else.
Yep.
Next one was Aliyah.
Aliyah,
yes, Aliyah.
Yeah. She was one that kind of bounced around a while. She was on NXT for a long time.
Was she the one that was on Ninja Warrior?
No, that was Katana Chance is her name now. Oh, okay. Katie Canzaro is her actual name.
Okay. Sorry, I got those two confused.
Yeah, she's still tagging right now. So And they're a great women's tag team. They're probably one of the best female tag team that's in the company right now. But Aaliyah, like I said, she was kind of a good NXT one, but she was always kind of like, when you're talking about like women workers, you've got like the big ones like Becky and Charlotte and so on and so forth. And then as you're going down the list, like you're like, oh yeah, and then there's Aaliyah. That was always the kind of thing, right? And she always kind of fell in the background. So I'm not terribly surprised they let her go. I would love to see her go over to AEW and work on the female roster on that side. I think she has enough talent that she can do well over there. I don't see her doing a long title run per se, or even going with like a TBS championship. But I could see her having a lot of good work with some of the people over there, like with Sky Blue or Julia Hart, or like having the great storyline stuff with them.
I think she just needs to keep getting experience. Keep working wherever she can, whether it's the Indies or Ring of Honor or NWA or or wherever it may be. I think if she gets a little bit more experience, I think she'll do a little bit better, and she'll end up somewhere.
Yeah.
So then we got Elias.
Yeah, Elias is an interesting one. He was a guy who kind of fell in and out all the time. Like he kind of just flowed, whether he was on TV or not. I'm not terribly surprised they let him go. He's one I could see not sticking around in any company if he chose to, after the way that WWE's treated him. But if he was to stay, I could see him working a new gimmick in Impact.
Yeah.
So
I
or
see
MLW possibly. I think MLW would be a good place for him as well.
Maybe I could see Impact. I can't really see him in AEW. I don't think they'd pick him up right now. I think his biggest downfall, because I think his character work was probably some of the best stuff he did, and at one point it was really hot, and he felt like it was going to move on to something bigger. But I just don't think he was a strong enough worker in the ring, to kind of back up the push he was getting at some point. But that's just my own personal observation. But he seems like a good guy, and I hope he ends up somewhere.
Yeah.
And gets repackaged.
I think he will. I think he's got an opportunity. He has the charisma to do just about any gimmick. And the stuff I remember seeing with his work was fine. He was a great bum dummy for a lot of guys. I don't know. It always seemed like there was something lacking in him. Not that he didn't have like because his promo skills were fine, even better than fine. Like they were really good. His in work was fine. His character work was fine. I just don't know. There was always something just slightly missing for him from that gimmick.
Right.
And it might be like the gimmick itself was just not. It was not a likable gimmick, but it wasn't a gimmick that you could really hate either, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the biggest downfall for him, is he was stuck with a gimmick he couldn't really do much with. In fact, he got more over when he was doing his Ezekiel gimmick, where it was his brother kind of thing, than he did with the Elias gimmick.
Yeah. We'll see where he ends up, I guess.
Yeah.
I think he will end up somewhere, though.
Yeah.
So then you've got Riddick Moss. I don't really. He didn't really stand out to me that much.
Yeah, he did that one run as Madcap Moss doing stuff with Baron Corbin, and
didn't he get injured too?
I don't remember.
No,
I don't remember. But he kind of fell out after that storyline was over, and they tried to do something with him, and I think it was Emma, who also has just been released as well again. And it just never played again. They never could catch that lightning in the ball from him, because he was hot. He was very hot by the end of that storyline. that they did with him and Corbin, and they could just never get it. And I don't know. I don't think it was anything with him. I just don't think that they had anything for him after that storyline was really over for him to sink his teeth into. I think he's got something, but I think he'll be an Impact because he's just not that AEW kind of worker.
Right, and we might as well talk about Emma that you just brought up. You've done a show with her, as well. I actually, that one, it's not surprising, but at the same time, like, she's a fantastic worker. I've always liked Emma as far as her in-ring work and her overall look, and even her promos. Really, I think she was really over at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I just think WWE never really knew what to do with her, or they never were really serious about pushing her. I know that I've heard that she has attitude problems, and different things like that, and so that might have held her back. That's really the only thing I can think of is just, they couldn't get behind her for whatever reason, or her attitude held her back. But I believe she's going to end up somewhere, and she could end up in AEW.
I think AEW would be a good spot for her. She's got a very similar character when she's working her heel character as like Britt Baker, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very similar in that aspect. So I think she could do well there. And again, you're right. She's a great worker. We had her on a war show, and she worked the crowd well. She was great in there with Kelly Klein. There was some issues in the back, but all in all, everything was fine. And I think that she could do really well in Impact, AEW. If that's the way she wanted to go.
I could also see her going to the NWA as well.
Yeah.
And doing something with them.
She was in NWA before she went back to WWE. So she'd always go back there.
Sure.
So
she'll end up somewhere.
Yeah.
She's too talented not to. So the next one, Top Dollar. This is one, it's interesting because they kept the other member of Hit Row.
The other two.
The other two. So obviously they see something in them, but not in Top Dollar. What are your thoughts here?
Top Dollar is not a surprising one for me. His work was never clean. Really, the only thing that was notable about him, especially when they did the bring him up to the main roster stuff, was how much crap Michael Cole gave them, or gave him specifically. So I think he could do fine on the indies if he chose to do it that way. But he needs a lot of cleanup and probably an update to his gimmick. He never was appealing to me whatsoever. So I'd like to see him do something new. But I think something like MLW and like do a storyline with him and Juicy or ROH and doing something in there. I think those would be a great place for somebody like Top Dollar if, again, he's able to rework his gimmick and go something a little differently that works with his size.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot of thoughts on Top Dollar. I was never really drawn to him one way or the other. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Shelton Benjamin.
Alrighty.
That one, it's not terribly surprising because he's been kind of around forever. He got released, for a bit and then got brought back. He's super talented.
Yeah.
And any roster would be, lucky to have him. Because he's just that good of a worker. I honestly think the one drawback that he's always had is his promos. And if he could get a mouthpiece, like he was always the best. Like when he was in the World's Greatest Tag Team with Kurt Angle and everything, and he had Kurt there to do promos, or he had Paul Heyman there to do promos. like he was at his best.
Yeah.
Um,
When they were doing the Hurt Business
mhm.
with MVP working
Yeah.
as the mouthpiece, it was great there, and that was like the most recent run for him.
Yeah, I think if he can get a mouthpiece, he'd excel anywhere. Like AEW might pick him up. He could go to Impact, Ring of Honor would
I,
be a
I
great place for him.
I think Impact and like the X Division area is a great spot for Shelton Benjamin.
Mhm.
But he is getting up there in age. He's
Right.
about my age, so he's starting to get up there. So I don't know how much more of that kind of style he would want to work per se. But yeah, he would do great in just about anywhere he would go.
You know
Uh,
what? You know what would be a good spot for him is if he went if Tony Khan picked him up for Ring of Honor and he was used as somebody to work with the younger guys,
mhm.
that they wanted to move up or whatnot, and he was kind of that ring general to help the next generation get over.
Kind of
And,
like
and
a cheeseburger was.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a good spot for him.
Mhm.
I think at this stage in his career. And then when the time's up for him to hang it up, I could see him being a backstage agent or something like that, or somebody that would train new guys or whatnot. I could totally see him doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I can even see him going to do being an agent now for AEW, which is
Mhm.
something I think that they desperately need, or
Mhm.
some more quality agents.
Yeah, yeah. But good guy, and yeah, he'll land on his feet.
Yeah,
There's no doubt about that for me.
they always seem to.
Um, so I see this next one, Daba Kato. Do you know who
Uh,
this is?
so he played the Commander Aziz character gimmick when what's his name? I can't think of his name. He was doing the Nigerian Prince gimmick. Um,
Oh,
but he came in and had Commander Aziz as his guy. That's who that was. Uh,
okay, okay.
but
The
he worked a couple of different gimmicks around.
the fact that I don't really know who he is, like, kind of tells me, like, knows big surprise that he was released. I don't know enough about him to know if he's gonna, keep wrestling or if anyone's gonna have interest in him. I don't know that much about him.
Him, as well as a few of the other guys that were also released, they were picked up during that big recruiting run that they did in India
Mhm.
about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to my next guy, Mansoor.
Mansoor, yep, Mansoor was probably actually the highlight of all of that, and he was great. The Maximum Male Model stuff that they did with him and Mace, who's also on this list,
Yeah,
um, they were fantastic as a tag team doing that gimmick. Like it's a stupid gimmick, right? Totally idiotic. But they ran with it and made it like something. And I could totally see Mansoor excel in Impact, or MLW, or GCW, even somewhere like there that has a big fan of high flying people um, that haven't really made a name yet. I think they could do huge, he could do huge in there. And if him and Mace end up continuing a tag team, I think that they would do great in Impact, or even in AEW. If they wanted to move over there, they would probably have to do something outside of the Maximum Male Models. But they had a lot of great chemistry together. So
yeah. Dana Brooke.
she's one that's surprising and not at the same time.
Right.
She was kind of a stalwart jobber for the women's division for the last near decade. It's been around, everybody can beat her, but she always has size to her that made you think that, like, maybe they'll be finally there. Like, any casual fan or anybody watching for the first time would see her and Becky Lynch, and she can go up against somebody like that and be like, "Oh, well, Becky actually beat someone with a lot more size to her. That makes Becky look better." Kind of scenario.
Right.
Anyone that's ever watched wrestling at all realizes no, Becky was going to win from like the get go. But like for the new fans, it was an easy way to do that, and that's the kind of thing you want for a jobber. So
there's a term for that, jobber to the stars,
yeah,
right? You know, that somebody that would beat some lesser people just to keep, make it look good when the stars would beat them,
yeah,
right? So, she's been with the company for a decade too.
yeah,
So, like, that's which is for a woman wrestler, that's an eternity,
yeah.
unless you're one of the established names. Um,
I can see her though because she was a power lifter and fitness person before getting into wrestling.
mhm,
I could see her not doing anything else in wrestling and
mhm.
just leave it there. Because what else would you want to do, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe Impact, maybe, but that'd be about the only Impact. It's like if we see somebody that might still be in the wrestling business and they're not good enough for AEW, it's like Impact. That's
Yeah,
probably the place for them. Poor Impact. Oh,
they did it to
um,
themselves, man.
yes. It used to not be that way. Um, Quincy Elliott.
Yeah, you're not gonna know this one. They
I
were
don't.
they were an NXT worker who's been around for 4 years. Um, they were a trans worker, which is the big thing, and they were gay. Uh, they they didn't really do anything with them. They would have things here or there, but they really didn't do much with them. It was kind of more about the representation of having them around than anything else. I could see them doing fine on the indies, GCW, MLW, but I don't even see them going to Impact, just because it doesn't fit with that kind of style of gimmick. Uh, so it's probably what you would see them on is
Mm.
on the higher end indies, GCW, MLW, NWA, something like that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm gonna quickly go through these next few, and I'll save the last two big ones. But I'm gonna go quickly through them because I have no idea who they are. So
Yeah.
we got Shanky. Um,
Shanky was part of that Indian tag team that uh, what's his name, was doing the mouthpiece for a hot minute. It was him and oh god, can't remember the other guy's name. It was in the tag team. Veer. Uh, it was him and Veer were tagging for a while. Shanky was fine. Nothing to write home about. He was also in that big recruiting from India thing.
yeah, I'm looking at a picture of Shanky, and he looks a lot like Jagger Lane. I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking at least from this picture that I'm currently looking
I
at.
can see it. I can see it. You have another one in that
Um,
list too. The
mhm.
Abdul Abai Fitzgerald.
Uh-huh.
He also was from that big pool from India recruiting. Never really made it onto the main, or never made it on even NXT. I think. Just kind of was there.
Yeah. Ulisa Leon.
Female NXT. I think she did NXT UK for a hot minute, if I remember right. Um, she was a fine worker. Really didn't see much for her gimmick wise or anything else. You didn't see a ton of her in general. So obviously she was lacking in something. I could see probably working independence for a while, trying to get more of a
Mhm.
new name for herself. So
Kevin Ventura Cortez.
him and Daniel MacArthur were some of the most recent pickups they did that were athletes that they're trying to make into wrestlers.
Oh,
That they did, kind of like they did with Bianca Belair, and
it worked for Belair.
yeah, it did. It did not work for these guys. I don't think they ever made it out of the PC. So
Ike Manjiro.
Ekman Jarl,
Yes, that
uh,
guy.
yes, he's
You
he
know
was
how I am with the Japanese names. Is he Japanese?
yes.
Okay, good. Don't want to
He
offend any
was
cultures.
picked up from I think he was, I want to say he was working in the DDT in Japan beforehand, which is probably where he'll end up back at. He was very good, very entertaining, but he just never got over with the crowd. He had some fun stuff, especially with Schism. Like recently, he did some entertaining stuff. He's kind of like Tozawa, but for NXT.
Gotcha. Brooklyn Barlow.
Brooklyn Barlow.
It's a women's wrestler.
Yes, it is. And I think she was another one that was on NXT. Barely made it out of the PC. Didn't do much. Probably same thing. If she stays around, it'll be Independence. I don't know a whole lot about her. So.
Okay. And then Bryson Montana. Know anything about that guy?
That one, not a clue.
Okay. At least I'm not the only one. Yeah. All right, now I'm gonna go to the last two here. One of your favorites, Matt Riddle.
I was not upset when they said this. Matt Riddle, though, was it was a twofer thing. One, it was an easy way to clean the bottom line out to release him because they were paying him way much more than he was worth. And two,
I was a little surprised, but go on.
It was more to do with the LAX incident that just recently happened.
Yeah.
If you hadn't heard, Stone that it was gored. He had mentioned that he was sexually assaulted by security at LAX, and then tried to take it back and said that it was not as bad as he said it was. But it caused this whole controversy and everything else. The WWE took him off of TV for the couple of weeks, and then just decided to let him go. Not terribly surprising, but he was actually let go 2 days, 3 days after this big leak.
Yeah, he was kind of like the last one.
Yeah,
really.
I wouldn't even directly call him part of this release, like big release. More of he was also released.
Yeah. One of the bigger names though, that got released, because I do feel like he's got value. I know you weren't a big fan of him. I think, I mean, can you imagine if we would have had Matt Riddle eventually versus CM Punk? Can you imagine how that would have went?
I don't think my eyes could roll any harder and stay inside of my head.
Oh man, the internet would be on fire.
Riddle's totally going to Impact, or not to Impact, totally over to AEW. As soon as
they're going to pick up Riddle.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they need somebody to fill that CM Punk spot. He won't get the push that Punk got, but he'll be a nice addition, I think.
I think he'll be fine over there, and then I can see him doing really well in matches with like Bryan Danielson, with Wheeler Yuta, because they have those stiffer styles. I think he would do great. He was really over in PWG, and AEW is kind of the big time spiritual successor to PWG, so it makes the most sense to have him in that.
I mean, he could wrestle Moxley and get into a bloodfest.
Totally,
I could totally see that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about, in my opinion, the biggest name to be let go, Dolph Ziggler.
1,542 matches in his 14 years in the company. He started in I think it was 2007 with the company or something like that, somewhere around there. But yeah, it's insane. We're going to be, for the first time in ostensibly 2 decades, without Dolph Ziggler in the company.
Yeah. He was one of those guys that, like, at one point, he was one of the best workers in the entire, company. And he was somebody that, he got a lot of comparisons to Shawn Michaels, to Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect there. And he kind of was honestly like a toss up of both. Like if Mr. Perfect and Shawn Michaels had a kid, there's Dolph Ziggler. Yeah. But I always enjoyed his matches. He was a fantastic, worker. He'd always constantly try to steal the show, have good matches. I think with him, there were a lot of fans that wanted him to leave because he wasn't getting used properly like a while ago. And then he re-signed a big contract. He chose, to stay with the security of WWE and the money rather than being a big star somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think for him, honestly, I don't feel so bad for Dolph Ziggler. And here's why. Number one, he cashed in and got the big money contract, and he had that security, but now he's free while he's not completely like washed up where he could go to another company and instantly be a top guy.
I'll tell you right now what I would love to see is him go to AEW. His brother works in AEW.
Right. Does it make sense?
Ryan Namath. He could totally do a tag team with him for a minute, or even something like he could have his brother be like his wingman, or he's his brother wingman to try and build him up, right?
Yeah.
But the other big thing that a lot of people have been talking about, and if you look at a lot of the Twitter posts after Ziggler was let go, was all of the other workers talking about how great of a guy he is, but more importantly, how great of a mentor he was for them. I think if he goes to AEW and have him as an agent as well as a worker, that you would see a phenomenal change in the quality of the matches at AEW. I think that is the perfect role for him.
Kind of in the Bryan Danielson role.
Exactly. Exactly. Being able to do that, have the stability, like he could stay ostensibly living in Florida, which is where he's from, and doing, the shows that he needs to go to do the shows on, and working as an agent, but then like having stories with people to not per se have to get himself over, but to make people. That's really what he's been doing over the last 7-8 years, is not even trying to get himself over, but to get other people, especially the last 2 years. They had that stuff with him and Mustafa Ali just recently when Mufasa was still up on the main roster, where he's like, why are you losing to this guy? Like, and they had the storylines where Mufasa's like, or Dolph Ziggler's like, I'm the show stealer. I'm that guy. I'm going to show everyone that I can be that guy. And they had this huge storyline to try and put somebody else over. He's great in that kind of role and everything else. And if they have him do a run where like have him come in and then have him work and get the TNT title and do a thing with the TNT title for a hot minute, to then put somebody else big over or somebody new over, that would be such a huge thing for that other person, and still give that love to Ziggler, whatever his name ended up being in AEW.
Right. Honestly, he'll probably go by his real name. It'll probably be Nick Namath.
Yeah.
I would love to see him be a staple on Collision and build up that show with Bryan Danielson and Dolph Ziggler as two of the top stars on Collision. I think that would be excellent work rate wise.
Oh yeah,
for that show. I'm already imagining the matches he could have. Him and Bryan Danielson would be fantastic in there. He could wrestle, Adam Cole, and it would be fantastic. He could, him and MJF, I think, would be fantastic.
Could you imagine the overselling and bump rate of him and Darby Allin?
Yeah, can you imagine him in there with the Young Bucks?
Right.
It's there. I mean, heck, you could put the Namath brothers against the Young Bucks. I'd watch it. There's so many fresh matchups and matchups he hasn't had in a long time with wrestlers that I think he could instantly be an Impact player, just not on Impact.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of opportunity going to AEW, and that's where I foresee him going to.
And they'll sign him too. Him and Riddle, I think, are probably top of the list for who AEW would go after right now.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like I said, I would probably have, if I was AEW, I'd also hire Shelton Benjamin, but as an agent role. More than anything else, and like an agent role, but like somebody is like, all right, somebody didn't make it, so throw Shelton out there, kind of thing, as a worker. But I definitely seeing Ziggler and seeing, Nick Namath, and having him and Matt Riddle being on AEW will only strengthen AEW.
Yeah, I'm honestly the ones that have a lot left to give, they're going to end up somewhere and it'll be just fine for them. So I'm not as sad as somebody where it'd be like, oh, their career's done, they have their big run and they're done. Like Ziggler, Nick Namath, he'll end up fine. Benjamin will end up fine. Riddle will end up fine. And I'm actually excited that now they get to have a fresh new set of opponents and a different, basically change of scenery.
Yeah. And it's ones like this on these releases, I'm not as worried, especially with these big names, as I would have been 5 years ago.
Well, yeah, when there wasn't an AEW or another place for them to go, really.
Exactly. Like, they might make it the Impact to go do a hot minute there or something like that, but they probably wouldn't do anything. They probably just go work independence or go start a school somewhere or something like that. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in 90 days after their no competes go away.
Sure.
So
yeah, right around the first of the year, probably.
Yep. Or who knows? Maybe some of them get brought back, and we see a surprise return of Dolph Ziggler at the Rumble.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess time will tell.
Right. All right. Well, Nikki, anything else to go on before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I thought it was an entertaining show tonight. So,
well, we did talk about a lot of crap.
yes, and we talked about some crap, and then we talked about a big release. So, you see
and
what I did there?
On that note, guys, let's go and talk about the upcoming shows for Devotion Championship Wrestling. So now we just finished up September, and what a crazy September that was. We have an insane October coming up for us. Starting off with Halloween Bash, October 6th at Light Tree Studios, our next live taping for Fight TV. And that's already set to be a huge show. We sold a ton of tickets to FanX for that. So please go online to our social medias on Facebook, Devotion Championship Wrestling, on Instagram, Devotion Championship Wrestling, on X/Twitter, DCW Salt Lake City, and get your tickets now while they're still available. The next one coming up after that, we will be making our first show ever in Logan. Follow us on our social medias to get the exact address because I don't have it here. But we'll be in Logan October 14th. October 19th, we will be doing our very first Tussle Time, which is having the ring in the bar for Liquid Joe. So it will not be a bar fight. It will actually be a Tussle Time. And then we will have traditional Tussle Time up at Kamikaze's up in Ogden on October 21st. And then we have so much more shows going on coming up the rest of this year. It's just insane. I was talking to somebody the other day. Devotion pretty much has something going on almost every weekend or almost every other weekend. I don't think I've wrestled this much in, I don't know. I this is what I was doing. This is like a 5 years worth of my first 5 years of wrestling within like this year of wrestling. That's how much we've been doing. And I've been only working stuff for Devotion, really. It's insane on how much we've been doing. Devotion's just kind of hitting it on all cylinders right now, man, and going crazy. Also, for all of the workers who are in and around Salt Lake City on October 6th at Halloween Bash, we are also doing a seminar with Sean Dean, who is currently not only a fantastic worker, but he's also the current booker for ROH and for Collision and for AEW Dark. So if you guys want to be seen and have a chance to go on to ROH as well as AEW and have a great seminar, we're doing that right now. I believe it's $50 for the seminar, and that will be on October 6th as well. That's also the day before October 7th. AEW is going to be here with Collision in Salt Lake City. So Sean's really looking for people to help fill out some stuff for dark matches as well as stuff for Collision in general. So if you guys want to take that opportunity, if you guys think you guys have what it takes, go on to our social media. Again, Facebook, Instagram, Devotion Championship Wrestling, on X/Twitter, DCW Salt Lake City, and go ahead and get that seminar paid and meet us here for Halloween Bash. Lastly, if you guys have any questions about any stuff we talked about today, let us know your thoughts on all the stuff with the releases, everything else. You can reach out to us on our social medias, which is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Be Hero Media. Or you can go to BeHeroMedia.com, which is everything Be Hero Media. You can also reach out to me directly at Mike Burke DCW at Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, or on Twitter at Mike Burke Pro. You can also reach out to Psycho at Psycho Wrestling on the Facebooks. Oh man, we took 2 weeks off. I forgot how we ended this thing.
Yes. So. We'll get back in the groove.
That being said, guys, you should guys also be getting a new episode of Slightly Agitated this week as well. So we're going to try and go right back into the swing of things. That being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was definitely a fun episode and one heck of a way to end a busy week for me. But you guys, for the rest of Be Hero Presents, this has been Psycho, this has been me, and this is us tapping out. Have a great night, guys.